I really need you just to think about your marriage in comparison to a growing tree, a growing plant, your garden, if you will. Just anything you can think of that establishes roots. Just think of that one thing. Like Jesus would use parables to explain his word, I want to use the rooting of a tree, the rooting of a plant that produces good fruit in comparison with your relationship. And so I want to talk to you about rootology, as I call it, rootology. And so, as most of you know, me and Lila's been married for about 30 years. It'll be 30 years in August. And in that time, we've had 4 boys, and one's still in the home, 16. Gabriel's on; he's halfway out, so he kind of counts halfway. But um, our marriage, as you can guess, our relationship obviously has had its ups and downs and arounds. And in that time, though, we've recognized that God is working on us, and that coming into marriage, we had our own preconceived ideas of what that looked like. And as a child, when we grew up in separate homes under separate family and parents and with different ideologies and theologies and stuff like that, some things were consistent. We both grew up under watching Disney movies where it talked about uh, uh, Disney movies that talk about happy ever after relationships. And so then it starts to plant the seed in our head that this is what a relationship should look like. We should be happily ever after and just fall in love and everything kind of like is bliss and stuff. But then as we're growing up and we have our ideas of what our ceremony would look like, as we have ideas of what our careers would look like, our homes, our properties. I mean, I had ideas for all those things, the white picket fence American family dream kind of thing, and everything's good and everybody's getting along with their neighbors, and there's no wars and there's no gossip and there's no Facebook. But then life hit, and we get married, and we have our reception, and we have our honeymoon, and then life hit. Problems starts happening. Wait a minute, this idea thing, this marriage thing, it's tougher than I thought. And so that brought ups and downs and arounds. But what God then started producing in us, more so to the latter part, is a different perspective of the way we fight. We don't fight because we think we don't belong together. We fight because we're convicted about certain things. Okay? And then that argument, God put it upon our hearts to say that arguments establish fruit. Some for the good and some for the bad. And just entertain me for a minute and pretend you're back into biology class and you're watching a video on roots. Watch this video.
Parts that are observable on the outside of a plant are called external structures. These include roots, stems, leaves, flowers, and fruit. Roots are usually the external structures that grow down into the soil. The primary function of the root is to take in the water and nutrients the plant needs to survive and grow. The water moves from the soil through the roots and stem to the leaves, where it is used in the food-making process of photosynthesis. Another important function of roots is to hold the plant firmly in the soil in which it grows. This helps to prevent them from being washed away by water or blown away by wind. There are two main types of roots. Some plants have roots that are shallow and branch out to cover a large area. These roots are called fibrous roots. Fibrous roots help the plants to take up lots of water when it rains. Other plants have one main root, called a taproot, which grows deep into the soil. This helps to reach water deeper underground. learn more about other external plant structures and their functions in our related videos. Catch you later.
So just a refresher, just in case you slept through biology. But I wanted to show that to you because I wanted to provide that visual for you. But can we agree that roots are necessary for stability? Can we agree on that? For any tree, plant, and in our case today, for a marriage, for a relationship, roots are started during courtship. Roots are established into the marriage. So, um, and the reason that God wants us to change our perspective on fighting in and of itself is not bad. It can produce good things, but the whole purpose of it is to establish roots for when bigger storms come, you can withstand the storm. That's the whole idea of God taking your relationship and you having differences because you're both two minds learning to become one, two people with different convictions learning to mingle those convictions so that you can have a harmonious relationship and roots get established. Can we agree a tree without roots will not stand? Can we agree with that? And that's even in some ways a lot biblical. So roots are very important. Can we agree that everything starts with a seed? So give me your attention for a minute. And so if this was top ground, next mark. If this was the top of the ground, and here's the tree trunk, and in it, according to what we saw roots, right? And then we saw different kinds of roots. And this is the illustration I want to give you. Let's call this the taproot as the video. Now, as the video portrays. Now, let me ask you something. If that's the main root for your marriage, what kind of thing do you think starts your marriage out to be great? What are those things? Let me help you out. Hope. That when me and Lila got married, we didn't get married just so we can get divorced. We got married so that this is the person I said I do. Love you through sickness and in health. And so the hope behind it was how we started. The blissfulness of our unity together was how we started, right? We're not getting to how and then life is yet. We're getting to how the taproot began. Okay, so obviously she's very beautiful and she's very attractive to me. So those things were part of that taproot. One of the things I saw in her was that she was a provider. She was a very good caregiver. So I saw her love come out. So our love together was part of that taproot, right? Um, so just think of we were both raised in the faith, so I knew that. So we both had we could put faith right under hope because faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. But life hits, right? And some of these roots can be your children. We had Isaiah. We had Noah. We had Gabriel. And Job just squared off here. These are the fibrous roots, as according to the video. They're the fibrous roots. We have the main taproot, which is why we got married and what our vision was for our marriage and stuff, and everything mainly involved in that taproot. That taproot is the first thing that comes out of the seed, and it generates what we see above the ground. You see, we don't even see God working behind the scenes. The only thing we see is what's above ground. I can't look into your past. I can't see what all has been done. But this I know. Everybody's got a taproot in their life. Everybody's got fibrous roots in their life. During my upbringing, you might have experienced mistrust because when you was at school, you tried your hand in a few relationships, and they ended up like cheating on you or doing something and getting with you with the wrong motives and place and stuff. So it developed a mistrust with you. That's a fibrous root. That's a fibrous root. That's something that grew up. Uh, so maybe you played sports, and one of the attractive things that you did that for is because you've got words of affirmation in your life. People always say, "Hey, good job." They gave you a trophy. They gave you a dinner. You was on a team of people, um, and so words of affirmation would be part of your uh, fibrous. Don't pay attention to my spelling. Will not even worry about that. Words of affirmation. Um, so you grow into that. And but let's just say you were always last pick during any school event, which is no fun. And that made you feel a certain way. Maybe you grew up and parents always called you stupid. Maybe you grew up and you thought your name was Jesus Christ because you always Jesus, no, or brat or heathen or whatever your parents decided to call you when they're mad. And you got name called and stuff. But not only that, but maybe you were loved as a child and you got parental love. And here I go. So parental love, all that's fibrous roots. You see where I'm going with this? That in your lifetime, before you even got married, you had roots in your life, in your personal life. And I would argue and challenge you to understand this, that your roots are made up of resolved or unresolved events. Resolved or unresolved events. There is good things in your life, there are bad things in your life, and a lot of people have not dealt with the bad things, and it goes unresolved, and we carry it into our life, our adult life. So those resolved or unresolved roots can be either roots of bitterness, roots of resentment, or grace and compromise. Somehow or the other, um, for example, if your parents fought a lot, um, depending upon how they fought, maybe they just didn't talk about their problems, and thereby you became a person who didn't talk about your problems. Or maybe your parents were the people that wore their emotions on their sleeve and they always talked about their problems. In fact, they didn't have a problem talking about it at the family reunion in front of everybody. Maybe your parents was like that. And so you're very open with your feelings. Um, maybe your parents got separated in your childhood. And as a result of that, there's some security issues in your life. And you're willing to be stepped on, spit upon, smacked around, and all this stuff simply for the fact of keeping it all together. And loved ones, let me tell you that. If that's the case, God created two to become one, not for one to have their way all the time. Does that make sense? Adam didn't have his way all the time. Eve didn't have her way all the time. God gave Eve to Adam so that the two, could become one, and the two complement one another. It is a relationship is never meant to be one-sided. Okay, you understand? So according to our video, or excuse me, let me back up. In my research, one counselor says a good relationship includes having fights. A good relationship includes having fights. And I'd like to think this counselor knew what she was talking about. She's got a lot of letters behind her name, which means she's got a lot of education behind it. However, I agree with that statement. A good relationship includes having fights. This is not a conference to say, hey, you'll never fight again once you get done with this. But because that's unrealistic. And give me a marriage that has experience in fighting versus a marriage that has not fought one bit. I'll take the marriage that's been fighting because they're the ones that's going to have the fruit. They're the ones that's going to have fruit. And when the storms come, and that storm is heavy and it's bending that relationship, it's putting all its pressure on it. Right, that tree's still going to stand. Amen. So roots and communication. I wanted to talk to you about this, and then we'll break out. You've seen the breakout slide I put on there while you were worshiping and stuff. When you see that, that means we're going to break out. But when we talk about roots and communication, resolved conflict is normally the result of compromise. Resolved conflict is the result of compromise. When we break out, what I would like to do, for you to do, is women to stay here in this sanctuary. Lila will talk to you. Men, we'll go out there to the lobby where there's a table set up and we'll talk there, together, okay? So what I'd like to do right now is break out, and I want to answer a question. I want to, among other questions that we'll have, I want to answer the question. I want to come up with as many ways of how we can compromise, and what ways is there compromise without compromising you? What are some ways we can compromise without compromising you? Okay? So we're going to break out right now, and we're going to go, women stay here, and then the guys will go over here and talk, and then we'll come right back and conclude our time.